Welcome, everyone, to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News. We are the news division of United Network, and our mission is to bring you the real news. So what is really happening on a universe level, even a multiverse level, what's happening in our world, on planet Earth, what is happening in our countries, in our states, in our communities, and then also on an individual level. Because I don't know if you noticed, but the energies are kind of all over the place right now. So what's really happening? What do you need to know right now in order to be a functioning human, especially a functioning human of the light? What do you need to know? That is our mission. And we bring you guys a ton of content every week. We talk about news stories that are happening that you might see some of the headlines out there, but we try to go more in depth with those stories. We have local stories as told through the eyes of our field messengers. We are all about the restoration of our beautiful planet. And we also tell you the people that are trying to stop our efforts to restore our planet. Their efforts are being diluted. They're getting less and less power every day, which is an awesome thing. And it's something to celebrate. And we've got some more good news to share with you guys. That'll be part of the Global Intelligence Agency report, more towards the end of this podcast. So this show is a week in review. I like to go over some of the main stories that we talked about this week, because I know you guys have a busy schedule and there's a lot of stuff going on, and you may have missed some of the cool content we put out. So you can always listen to episodes of The Rundown and get caught up. And this is also a great episode, a great podcast to share with other people who maybe have never heard of United Network News and all the cool stuff that we do. So all podcasts are free, and this episode is free. So go ahead and share this link if you guys are watching it, or kind of watching it, not with video, but with like my face up there. You could be watching it on our app. You could be watching it in some different spots. Or if this is an audio podcast, just share that link with other people, because we need to get the word out as much as possible. If you want more information about who we are and what we do at United Network, visit our website, unitednetwork.earth. If you're not a member, you can still access all of the content that I'm going to be talking about today. You can access the full reports either on YouTube or Rumble, but we do publish them a week after it's released to our members. So you can still get access. You just got to wait about 7 days or so. With this podcast, this week in review, I always encourage you guys, no matter what we say, you need to internally process this, okay? I want you guys to think critically about all information coming your way, and I know there's a ton of it, not just from us, but from all different sources. There can never be a better time than to understand discernment and to understand who you are, because then everything else makes a little bit more sense. In order to understand things, you really need to think critically. You need to ask questions. Do your own research. And if something, even if it's something that we talk about, if that's not jiving right with you, that's okay. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? That's a U.S. saying, an American saying. Instead, just kind of put that to the side. Still listen to what we have to say, because there's a lot of good content, especially today. There's a lot of really cool stuff that we're going to talk about. And then when something does ring true with you, share that with other people. And maybe it's an entire podcast episode. Maybe it's a single report, whatever it is, because we just want to help as many people as possible. So let's get to it, shall we? Here are the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. Here we go with our field messenger reports. Our field messengers are what United Network News is all about, because we believe you guys care about the issues that are happening in your community. You care more than some news correspondent that's going to fly in and do a quick wrap up, right? No, you understand the issues. You've lived through them. You know your areas the best. So why don't we just have people talk about what's happening in their own communities? And what if we had 10,000, 100,000, a million people doing this all around our planet. How cool would that news actually be? That is what we're doing here at United Network News. I feel very privileged that I get to share your stories, but really, the stories should be coming from you. I feel like myself right now, the news team, we're kind of a placeholder until we get more and more field messenger reports in, and then that's what our news reports are going to be. It's you guys sharing what's going on in your community. And then at that point, we're just there, the glue that holds it from one story to the next. And in order to do this, in order to make this effective, then we need as many people becoming field messengers as possible. So if you want to know what that's all about, what that looks like, perhaps even start submitting your own field messenger reports, then you can check out our website, unitednetwork.earth, and we've got more information there for you. I actually asked this question before from some of our team members. How many countries or people from how many countries have sent in field messenger reports? And at the time, this was several months ago, but the answer was about 75 countries. Well, there's a lot more countries in the world than 75. So help us. It doesn't matter how big or how small your country is. We want that number to keep climbing, right? And so please, if something's going on that you feel the world should know about, go ahead and take out your camera, start recording, send us pictures, images, video, a little bit, information, voiceover, and then we have a production team that will put it together and put it up on the news for you. So let's get going with our first report, which comes from Australia. Clive out of Australia. By the way, Clive, if you're listening, I love your accent. I know you don't have an accent. I have an accent, right? But it's really cool. Clive tells us about a personal development, I guess I'll call it a class that he took. It's called the Flame Tree Personal Development and Healing Course. Oh, I guess they call it a course. But it helps you get to the root of any problems that you're experiencing. Could be mental problems, physical problems, using a mix of science and energy-based techniques. And Clive actually took this course, and he was telling us about it. He also did a quick interview with the person that put this course together and got to know a little bit more about why he created this course and some of the different modalities that are represented in the course. In fact, there's some online classes coming soon for those of you, maybe you're not in Australia, but you want to check it out online. So learn more about this technique. It looks pretty cool to me. And you guys can go ahead and watch that full report for more information. All right, Emma out of Spain talks about the moringa tree, which I actually learned more about probably about, 4 months ago. I went to this event that was focused on healthy living, healthy eating, and there was someone there that made a presentation talking about the moringa tree. So I have heard about this tree. It is known as the miracle tree because of all the incredible benefits that you can get from the leaves from the tree and all the nutrients, right? And it helps with a lot of different things: antioxidants, anti-inflammatory effects, essential nutrients for overall well-being. And it just so happens that Emma in Spain has one growing in her backyard. And I think we could all use a moringa tree in our backyard. She collected some of the leaves, and she created a moringa leaf powder that she uses in a variety of ways. I think she said you can just sprinkle it on food. She puts it in smoothies. You can also put it in coffee. I'm not sure if that impacts the taste at all, but it looked pretty cool. And like I said, it's known as the miracle tree. So probably something we should all be adding to our diets, right? Johan Peter out of the Netherlands. He's actually in Holland for this story. And he talks about building a flexagon. So when I first read that, I was like, it sounds like a musical instrument. It is not. So it is a sustainable natural home. And it uses clay, straw, and wood to assemble this home. And you can do it all on your own. And he actually went to a class where they were showing you how to do it. And I believe he said you could build your own house in 1 week with 12 people. And that house is pretty incredible. So it's built with an ecological perspective, right? So it's good for the environment. He said it was earthquake proof, which sounds incredible, right? And the home, it actually has 6 sides to it. So sometimes when you think of a house, a very simple house, you may think of like 4 walls to a house. Well, this has 6 walls to the house. And he said if you can keep the moisture from getting on the inside, these homes can last for 100 years. And it costs very little to produce. I mean, you wouldn't even need a mortgage, right? So sounds very interesting. If you want to see what these flexagons look like, you can check out the report. All right, Lisa, out of Georgia, which is a state in the United States. We actually have a few reports right here in a row that are all about weather. So for Lisa, she is in Savannah, Georgia. They saw their first snow in 7 years. And she just said it turned into this beautiful winter wonderland. She said people were building snowmen. They were making snow angels. And I guess some of the cars were doing donuts. If you don't know what that is, you could look it up online. But it's kind of like, you go really fast on the snow and then you turn and your car kind of goes in a circle, which sounds really crazy. We used to do this when I was in high school. My high school boyfriend and I would go out, and he had this really heavy car, so it was really good for making donuts. And we were going to an abandoned parking lot, like a Walmart parking lot or something like that, where you wouldn't hit anything. And it was actually a lot of fun. So apparently they were doing this in Georgia, just having a really good time. She said the schools were closed. They did require the kids to do some remote learning from the computer, but still kind of fun. If you're not used to snow, that's kind of cool. Now, the next report is CJ out of New Hampshire, another state in the U.S., but New Hampshire is way up north. So they are used to getting snow. In fact, they really like their snow. Her area is known for some skiing, so perhaps a little bit of tourism there. They just like their winter sports. Unfortunately, they have had less snow this year. And, she says it's off to a strange start. The temperatures are warmer than usual. They've had some late season storms. She says overall, it's been about 14 degrees Fahrenheit, which sounds pretty cold to me, but perhaps not cold enough in order to keep all that snow around that they're used to. So again, some strange weather patterns happening, at least here in the U.S. Sophie from Austria shares with us a winter wonderland. She every winter goes out on this incredible lake in Austria. She says it becomes Europe's largest natural ice rink. So if you can imagine a huge lake with beautiful scenery around it, and people, the ice is really thick. You don't have to worry about that. That's the first thing I think of. I think that's probably one of my worst fears, is getting trapped below ice where you can't get out. So I'm like, I don't know, going out on the ice. I'm not sure about that. But her video showed people skating. In fact, I think Sophie was skating. It's great for nature lovers. There were people out walking their dogs on the ice. And I was like, oh, their poor paws. I don't know. I don't know if my dog would go out there. But she called it a huge playground. And I thought that was really cool because, it's something simple. It's like, well, it's water. It was a lake, and now it's just a giant ice rink. But we get really excited about that kind of stuff, and it's fun to explore. Helen out of Australia shows us how to make a climbing frame out of natural things you would just find in your yard. Okay, so you guys know what a climbing frame is. It's like something that you would use in your yard if you wanted like a vine or something that climbs, right? So berries in this case. Helen talked about her berries, and they were just kind of hovered over the ground, not too far off the ground. And she wanted to have a frame so the berries could grow on, this kind of like a trellis kind of thing, right? And so she wanted to do it creating completely natural elements from her garden. So she trimmed some trees, she put them to the side for a while, all the leaves were taken off and all that stuff. And then she showed how she created this grid system using everything that was already in her yard. And it was kind of cool. And I think she had a friend that helped her with it. So looked really cool if you guys want to check out that report and learn how you can do that for yourself. Monica out of Romania takes us to the city of violins. It's a small Romanian town. It's known again as the City of Violins. It's home to factories and workshops. And I think the name of the town is Regan. I think that's how it's pronounced. This is a place where skilled craftsmen produce violins, violas, cellos, double basses, and guitars. So she takes us into a workshop of sorts, and you can see, you could tell it was like a small town, because when I think of instruments being made, I think of like large factories, but this is so much more intimate. And she talks us through the process of like the different wood that's used specifically to make a violin and the different stages. She said it could take 7 or more years to actually create a violin from scratch without all the factory stuff, right? This is just artisanship at its finest. But the wood has to dry, and that can take like 4 years, I think she said. But it can take that long until this instrument can make the music that we're used to, hearing when we think of the word violin, right? Very cool process. And who would have thought, out of Romania, right? And finally, Amy out of New Jersey, it's another state in the U.S. She is on a roll. She's teaching us how to make a lot of different things in the kitchen. And she's wearing her pearls because that's what you do. You wear your pearls when you're cooking. So today, she teaches us how to make, she originally called it poor man's lasagna. And I was like, I don't know, what's poor man's lasagna? But then she changed it to hearty lasagna. It looked incredible. She had meat and vegetables, a sauce that she called creamy bechamel. Not really sure exactly what that is. But she was using it instead of the usual tomato sauce. And she had lots of cheese on there. And we just kind of follow along with her recipe. And it looked fantastic. I don't think you'd be hungry after making hearty lasagna with Amy. Okay, let's talk about some of the news stories that we released this week. These are stories, like we see things in the headlines, and we're like, let's talk about that. But there's more to that story. So we devote, 5-7 minutes or so per story. It gives us an opportunity to include more sound bites in there and really go more in depth as to what the issue is and what's really going on. So let's run through these. On Monday, we talked about raw dairy. Now, I know that's kind of controversial for some people. Personally, in my family, I am a raw milk drinker. I actually make kefir out of it. I should probably do a field messenger report on the benefits of kefir and how to make it, because it's something I recommend everybody do. The nutrients and vitamins that are in kefir are incredible. So much more than yogurt. So much better for you when you can do it at home. Anyway, I digress. That's how I personally use raw milk, and it has opened up a lot of conversations between me and other people about raw milk. So I thought, let's do a story on this and really talk about, some of the misnomers around this. So we know raw milk, dairy products, raw dairy too, because you do cheese and there's raw cheese, other things like that, are gaining in popularity. But like I said, it is sparking debate over the health benefits and also those risks. Advocates argue that raw milk is unprocessed and free from heat treatment. And they say that this offers a more nutrient-dense natural alternative to pasteurized milk, aligning with trends of food freedom and self-sufficiency. Now, the pandemic boosted interest in raw milk, right? Because we're all doing things on our own. Maybe you can't get to the store. Maybe you're just questioning all the information that's out there and whether or not it's accurate. So this boosted interest. More people are going to local farms to get their milk, listening to social media influencers that were fueling this raw dairy movement. Let's hear what one medical doctor has to say about raw dairy, specifically raw milk.
This is why you should be drinking raw milk. Let's start with the benefits. Consumption of raw milk in kids who grow up on or off farms leads to lower rates of asthma, eczema, and allergies in adulthood. Raw milk has been associated with beneficial changes in the gut microbiome, including increased levels of lactobacillus. And raw milk also contains the highest levels of MSM, a compound studied and found to improve joint health. Interestingly, in studies looking at raw milk consumption, it's been found to be as effective as breastfeeding in reducing respiratory tract infections in kids. Raw milk also contains multiple factors: lactoferrin, lysozyme, lactoperoxidase, immunoglobulins, which are protective and prevent the overgrowth of pathogenic bacteria in the raw milk. Raw milk also contains over 700 species of commensal bacteria in the actual raw milk fluids. There are multiple ways to drink raw milk. Even if you're lactose intolerant, you can do kefir, which is a fermented raw milk. You can do raw cheese or raw butter. No matter how you get it, getting raw milk, raw dairy in your diet is definitely going to improve your health.
Well, to be honest, not everyone feels that way. There are experts that warn of the risks, which could include bacterial contamination. They also say viruses like the H5N1 bird flu that everyone was so crazy about, which basically eliminated raw milk. Like I couldn't even get it in California for about a month because of those warnings. Those have all been linked to raw milk outbreaks. Now that's questionable, but that's the narrative out there. The legal status of raw milk varies across the U.S., with some states allowing it under strict regulations, like California allows it. There's other states that ban it entirely. All right, youth esports. Have you guys heard of this before? Esports, it's also known as competitive video gaming, and that is also rapidly grown. It is now a global industry worth $2.4 billion, with major tournaments offering large cash prizes, not prices, and a booming fan base. It provides opportunities beyond gaming, including careers in coaching, marketing, and content creation, while also being integrated into education through esports degrees and scholarships.
Esports offers a unique platform for fostering inclusion, promoting social skills, and nurturing essential life skills. A study conducted by Villanova University found that esports participation significantly improves students' communication, teamwork, and problem-solving abilities. Esports seamlessly integrates into school curriculums to enhance the STEM education. Students engage in coding, game design, and analysis, developing a deeper understanding of technology and its applications. A recent survey revealed that 86% of teachers believe that esports can improve students' STEM literacy. Esports also play a crucial role in preparing students for college and careers. Students involved in esports demonstrate increased motivation and academic engagement, leading to higher GPAs and a stronger desire to pursue higher education.
Now, on the other side, there are some challenges, such as the lack of specialized instructors and concerns over long-term career prospects in a fast-evolving field. In other words, you're doing this with all of your time. Is there really going to be a career there for you since everything's growing so quickly? Additionally, excessive gaming can harm both physical and mental health, with issues like eye strain, depression, and gaming addiction. Despite these challenges, esports remains a thriving, increasing mainstream industry. Let's talk about rental rights in the UK. So a renters' rights bill was introduced in the UK in September of 2024. It aims to strengthen tenant protections and address issues like no-fault evictions and unfair rent increases. The bill also seeks to end practices like rental bidding wars, and it also sets limits on rent hikes and ensures fairness in the rental market. Here's a bit more information about this bill.
A new draft bill reforming renters' rights has been introduced in the UK Parliament. So, what would the changes mean for you? If approved, the bill would introduce a range of measures aimed at balancing the scales between tenants and landlords, as the government pledges to clean up the mess they say was left in the rental market by the Conservatives. A key change in the draft bill is the banning of no-fault evictions, something the Tories tried to get through, but they couldn't get over the line before the election. A no-fault eviction is when a landlord can evict a tenant without giving a reason, as long as they follow a legal process. It means tenants who have not breached their contract and want to stay in their home can be told to leave as long as 2 months of notice is given. If the tenant doesn't leave, the landlord can then apply to the court for a possession order. The government says banning these types of evictions will push out bad landlords and give good ones robust grounds to take back their properties when they need to. The bill also includes changes such as giving tenants the right to request a pet, which landlords cannot unreasonably refuse. It would also mean a WABS law would be extended to the private sector, forcing landlords to fix damp and mould within a specified time frame. Blanket bans on tenants with children or those on benefits would also be banned, helping the 1 in 5 families in England currently unable to rent because they have children.
While tenant groups support these reforms, arguing they bring much-needed security, landlords express concerns about the challenges of property management under these new rules. The bill's success depends on the availability of resources for the justice system to handle disputes, with former scrutiny expected before it could become law, which is in summer of 2025, later this year. Have you ever noticed, if you're a parent or if you're watching kids at their house maybe, that a lot of times kids have too many toys? I know that was definitely the case with my family when my kids were little. In today's world, children often accumulate an overwhelming number of toys, with the average household, at least here in the U.S., owning 71 of these toys per kid. While parents want to provide the best for their children, this toy overload can lead to chaos and a cluttered home. Studies show children actually benefit more from having fewer toys, fostering creativity and longer, more focused play.
Do you know you don't need that many toys? The research on play tells us that when there are fewer toys around, children pay more attention to their play partner and also are more likely to play with toys in different and new ways, to persist, really explore, problem solve, and learn, because they're not as easily distracted by all the other toys in the environment. So buy fewer toys. If you've already got a bunch, put them away. Keep out maybe 5 or 6 or fewer, and then rotate every couple of weeks.
Smart idea. To manage toy clutter, many parents are turning to strategies like what you just heard, which is commonly known as toy rotation, keeping only a few toys accessible at a time and then rotating them out. This helps prevent overwhelm. It also boosts their creativity and encourages a more intentional relationship with their toys and all of their possessions, really. Mushroom coffee. Have you heard of this before? Maybe some of you guys have even tried it. It's a blend of medicinal mushrooms like chaga and lion's mane with coffee beans, and it is becoming a popular alternative to traditional coffee. It offers a smoother energy boost with less caffeine, making it appealing to those looking to reduce their intake while still staying sharp. Now, these mushrooms are known for their potential health benefits, such as boosting immunity and reducing stress, but more research is needed to confirm all of these claims. Here's another medical doctor who is speaking out about these benefits.
What is mushroom coffee? Is mushroom coffee healthy? Well, like it sounds, mushroom coffee is actually coffee that's made from mushrooms or coffee that's had mushrooms added. Mushrooms give you a benefit because they are polysaccharides, many sugars that are particularly delicious for our gut buddies to eat. And one of the reasons mushrooms are such a great health food is because these polysaccharides prompt good bacteria to produce the compounds that you and I are looking for, called postbiotics. So mushroom coffee is actually an easy way to get mushrooms into your diet.
While generally safe, people with allergies or certain medical conditions should consult a doctor before trying mushroom coffee. Despite its unique taste and higher price, don't forget that, mushroom coffee offers a distinct health-focused twist for coffee enthusiasts. I have yet to try this, but I will say there is at least one person on the UNN news team that has and really enjoys it. So I don't know. Maybe I'll give it a try. All right. Secondhand clothes. It's also known as pre-loved fashion. That sounds like a nice term, doesn't it? Well, it's a sustainable way to refresh your wardrobe without contributing to the fashion industry's environmental impact. With many garments ending up in landfills after minimal use, we've talked about this before, buying secondhand supports circular fashion, where clothes are designed to be reused, repaired, and recycled. Thrift shopping offers a chance to find unique, high-quality items at affordable prices while also promoting creativity and individuality.
Pre-loved clothes are having their moment. The global clothing resale market is worth $193 billion. It's expected to hit $350 billion by 2027. So upcycled fashion has become big business. But buying pre-loved is only one part of the story. Selling it is the flip side. There are online portals to resell items. You see, a circular economy is in process. So mainstream retailers want a slice. Clothing giant H&M has a resale service. Asda too has a successful second-hand clothing division. 62% of resellers reportedly get more than they spent. Balenciaga has a resale program across America, Europe, and Singapore. Owners can sell their pre-owned products to the brand and get paid for it. Watch brand Rolex offers pre-loved watches in Europe. Upcycled pieces are not only cheaper and more sustainable, they're changing the game of fashion.
Shopping secondhand helps reduce waste, extend the lifespan of clothes, and make luxury items more accessible. It's an easy and impactful way to engage in sustainable fashion, whether shopping online or in local stores. And I can tell you, especially for like higher quality items, if you're going for having fewer items, but really making each of your pieces really count, this is a great way to reach out to secondhand stores. I do this a lot, believe it or not, with the blazers that I wear on the news. That kind of clothing can be incredibly expensive, definitely way outside of my budget. And if I want to have more of a variety, it's just easier. I can get different jackets and blazers for like $15 on some of these stores, and they're gently used. They're name brands, which I'm not like a really big name brand person, but if that means higher quality, then that's fantastic, right? So definitely give some of these stores a try. You'll find them online everywhere. Okay, Gen Z, have you heard? They are shifting away from the traditional drinking culture, with fewer young adults regularly consuming alcohol compared to previous generations. A 2023 Gallup survey shows a 10% increase in alcohol avoidance amongst young adults, and only 18 to 20% of those aged 21 to 28 drink regularly. In fact, if you're thinking about drinking less, they even have a term for it. It's called sober curious.
Sober curious means that you're mindful about drinking and about how much alcohol you consume.
So it's not completely abstaining from alcohol.
Exactly.
A new survey found 42% of Americans described themselves as sober curious, up from 33% in 2022. And notably, the biggest group of Americans cutting back is Gen Z.
I think young people might just be a little bit more wellness conscious, a little bit more health conscious. There's a lot bigger conversation going on about mental health and what impacts your mental health.
Recent studies reveal that even low levels of regular drinking can have negative long-term health impacts. Earlier this month, the Surgeon General issued a new advisory warning those who drink face a higher risk of cancer.
Everyone wants a nice adult beverage, something that tastes good, something that's interesting, something that's exciting, but they just don't want the effect of alcohol.
In response, businesses are offering more non-alcoholic options like mocktails, premium non-alcoholic drinks, and functional beverages, including CBD drinks and kombucha. This trend, maybe it's not a trend, maybe it'll stick around forever, is aligned with a growing movement toward moderation, wellness, and healthier lifestyles, further supported by public health warnings about the risks of alcohol. Gen Z is embracing a social life where fun and connection don't revolve around drinking. I swear I have not been drinking. I was not drinking prior to recording this episode. All right, recycled cans. Have you ever gone to like a store and just looked at all the cans and the jars and thought, how much of this was actually recycled in order to end up back in the store today? Well, recycling glass and metal materials like aluminum and steel, it plays a key role in sustainability, but there are a lot of challenges still. While glass can be recycled into new bottles and jars, its effectiveness depends on proper sorting and contamination-free collection, which is often hindered by single-stream recycling systems. Only about 40% of glass is recycled, at least in the U.S., whereas Europe boasts impressive results of up to 93% recycling rates.
is recycling landfill? The answer is yes. Some of it ends up in the landfill. There's what we call a contamination rate all across the country. 9% to 15% of everything we pick up at the curb is going to end up back in the landfill because it's contaminant. Back when I grew up in the family business, we had one bin that was for newspaper, all papers. We had one bin that was for plastic. We had one bin that was for glass. And we would do what's called source separation. Well, as the industry continues to evolve, they brought on this thing called single stream recycling. Everything goes in one bin. Do you know the two reasons why we did that? Number one thing is safety. Safety is a huge part of our whole industry. Safety because we want to get that employee or that crew off the street. And then the second reason is we want it convenient for the consumer.
Yeah.
We want to make it consumer friendly. So instead of separating it in your little bin as you used to, we want to make sure it's all in one bin and you can recycle as much as you want.
Aluminum and steel are highly recyclable and can be reused endlessly without losing quality. So that's a good thing. And that makes them vital to sustainability. Efforts to improve recycling methods alongside creative upcycling are crucial for reducing waste and promoting a circular economy. See, that term's coming back. We were talking about it with our secondhand fashion, and now we're talking about it with recycling our cans and jars. Now let's talk about risky play. So when kids are playing outdoors, a lot of what they're doing now that I did as a kid constantly is now considered risky play, which has declined over the years, with kids spending less time outside due to increased screen time and indoor activities. This quote-unquote risky play, like climbing trees or exploring on their own, is essential for children's development, helping them build confidence, physical skills, and resilience.
Risky play is really important because children need to be able to actually manage the risks themselves. They need to be able to observe a situation and make judgments about it. And so if children don't have the opportunities to practice using those decision-making skills, if they actually haven't developed the neural pathways that allow the connection for decision-making to occur, then they can't actually understand when a risky situation needs to be responded to in different ways. So children are really good at actually assessing risk if they're given opportunities to practice being risk takers. And so that's why risky play is really, really important.
See, common sense is not always that common. Countries like the Netherlands, Australia, and Canada are revamping playgrounds to encourage such adventurous play. As studies show, it enhances motor skills and combats health issues like childhood diabetes. Experts emphasize the importance of allowing children to face challenges independently, like she just said, fostering problem-solving skills and independence to benefit them throughout life. Okay, here are some updates, some sound bites and information from the GIA report, the Global Intelligence Agency report given by Kimberly Gogan. So Kim was able to do 3 reports this week. Awesome. She was there Monday, Wednesday, and she couldn't make it on Friday, but she did an update today, which is Saturday. So I've got sound bites from all of the updates. There's a lot of stuff to get to. Starting out on Monday, Kim was talking about what the deep state is doing right now. They are apparently visiting with elders, Rothschilds, the Illuminati, anybody that they thought had access to anything. There's a lot of lying going on. Surprise, surprise. They are trying to take money from wherever they can, but their own companies, right? So you see these executive orders going out because, yes, the Trump team is in on this. They are part of these groups, okay? They are not out there fighting for Team Humanity, okay? And you see the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, out there trying to take money from wherever they can. And part of the reason is not to put it back in, at least if you're a U.S. citizen, to put it back in your pocket. It's to see if they can get money, period. Because as we've been talking about for years now, there is no new money coming into the financial system. And we've done a lot of reports on this and the structure of how things were initially set up. It's not structured that way anymore. So there is no making money off of war. Okay, new money is not coming into the system to fund your war, to fund your pandemic. And so the deep state's looking at each other going, we need money. And they're, using old playbooks and getting really bad information. And also they have got egos, the size of the Empire State Building. And it's not allowing them to move forward, okay, and accept what is really happening with the financial system and with the golden age AI. So they are truly trying to bankrupt the world economically. They are trying to crash the system at every turn. This is obviously not working out in their favor. They would prefer to find some sort of system to drain all the funds from the banking system in one shot. Yeah, like we're going to help them with that, right? Of course they would. They want this to be as easy as possible. I'm sure they're getting tired because at every turn they try something new and nothing is working for them. I'm sure they would like what was it, Staples that had the little fix it button or whatever that, I don't remember what it was called. I think the deep state wants one of those little buttons to like just make things happen, and it's just not happening for them. The Rothschilds, you guys have heard the Rothschilds before, even if you're brand new to UNN, a famous banking family. Well, there's a lot more to the Rothschild than just people with the Rothschild name, okay? There's a whole group of people, a lot fewer now than there used to be, but people representing the Rothschilds are claiming that the world's money is theirs. And they even threw in something kind of fancy, saying that they controlled the Emerald Order Covenant, or they were part of the Emerald Order Covenant. If you haven't heard of that before, we're going to talk a little bit more about that because according to Kim, people are being misled. So we really need to break down why the Rothschilds cannot claim that the world's money is theirs and how they were never even part of the Emerald Order Covenant. Now, to explain all this, Kim got out her whiteboard. So I'm going to play a clip. You can hear her writing in the background. It takes her a little bit of time to explain things because she's writing and talking at the same time. But here's more on what's going on and why people are being misled. And there's just all these lies going on right now. Here's Kim.
So there are programs on the internet that people talk about a lot. And some of these programs for people are, Nicera, Jacera, and those types of things. Now, if you've been around for a while, we have talked about why these things are economically impossible. There are, again, when we sat down here, several hundred years into the poker game, and we decided that there was a need to restructure the banking system into an asset-based system, we take some of these things into account. Now, one of the factors in even the former calculations was job creation. So the reason why job creation for people comes into play, this is all of you, 8 billion people on roaming around the earth here, is because of a guardianship obligation. In the past, that main guardian, head general underneath global martial law, was Marduk. Although Marduk was in charge of a lot of things and put a lot of the position, being after being that held that position, put a lot of things in place in the entire multiverse, which allowed for him to have a lot of power. He had covenants with Anti-Source, Lucifer, you name it, in order to achieve this amount of power. But here on Earth, he would have been your guardian. Now, there were certain agreements with a group of people he called the parents. Then underneath the parents, you had family masters on both sides. These were heads of covens. And you had Black Sun, family masters of covens and covens that ran the Order of the Black Sun, but you also had them on the Order of the Dragon side. And then underneath them, now you start getting into, maybe families, and then eventually way down here you had governments. Now, up at this level, this was where and I'm not even going to say owner, I'm going to say, I would call him a controller, whereby many, many agreements and many, many covenants with many, many different beings, including anti-source, Lucifer, neutral source, all these different folks. He had the ability to control the current seas, meaning the flow of things such as energy, which on level 8 or 9 in the 8, 9, 7 in the system, it would be considered energy. It doesn't actually get converted into matter we know as money until you hit about level 5 of the internet. Until then, it is all part of covenant after covenant after covenant after covenant. So Marduk also was one of many players. Now, there were probably, I would say, about 60 different beings that signed something called the Ultimate Oath. And the Ultimate Oath had to do with balance. It had to do with the balance between dark, light, and neutral. It had to do with a balance of power in the multiverse. It had to do with the ultimate gatekeeper system, which had to do with moving the assemblage point of the universe from the essential verse over into the alpha omega verse, which then became a holographic universe and more controllable. It had to do with hundreds, and I mean hundreds, thousands of matrices that existed to control things in the multiverse that, bit by bit, piece by piece, have all been breaking down. Universal networks, old agreements, some of them existing as far back as before we even had humans on this planet. So for the Rothschilds to come forward and say, oh, we own all of the money in the world, that is false, because money, albeit dark in the past, was energy. And the creation of money, I guarantee you they could not explain this process. So if you are questioning, and you are listening to this report, did the Rothschilds have control over all of the world's money supply? The answer to the question is absolutely no. And if you don't believe me, you can ask them how money is created on different levels of what you call webs, networks. On the highest level of operations on this planet, everybody knows what that is. Level 9, level 8, level 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 when governments start talking down here. Somewhere around level 3. If you were the Federal Reserve, you would probably start talking somewhere around level 6. And so, they're so far removed from the flow of money. So when they talk about being instrumental in the Emerald Order Covenant, I am going to tell you that is also false. That is 100% false, because it was a subset of this Ultimate Oath Covenant, which then brings you to, way down here, Emerald Order. Now, this covenant, there is not a human that exists in it. Not one. Never a person that was part of the Emerald Order Covenant. Never. Not a family master, not a coven. I'm sure that they knew about it, that they've talked about it, but all of the parties who agreed to this covenant were subsector demons, so to speak. You were talking about Astaroth, Baal, Beelzebub. I mean, these are the creatures that would sign an oath for balance, and then there would be a counterbalancing person on the other side of the universe that they would have to be a lock and key. And that's how these matrices were set up in a lot of cases. So for them to say that they should be now in control, that they control money flow, they have also told people because they control all the money in the world, they should now own the Golden Age AI, or whatever name we're going to call it today. It doesn't matter. We can change the name whenever we want on our side of it because we created it. So they are selling you sunshine just to buy time. Now, the fact that on the other side of it, the operatives have been told to hurry up and burn the financial system to the ground today, tonight, like right now. It's because they know they are running out of time.
So the deep state, also known as non-repairable humans, because it doesn't matter what information these people have. They just keep going down the same path. It's like they cannot comprehend that their way is not going to work, that we have a new plan now, a new future now that doesn't involve any of them if they stay on course, right? They don't want to admit that. And that is not only frustrating for all of us people here on Earth, that is frustrating to the entire universe. Because things that happen here on Earth ripple out. And all that negative energy, darkness, whatever they're trying to grab onto is affecting the entire universe. And something had to change because not only are we frustrated with it, but all of our other friends out there of light don't like any of our, what did Kim call it? Stinky energy. Because the dark is just stinky. I'm sorry. It's just not good energy. And so something had to be done. According to Kim, a universal change was needed. And that change was to make all planets of the light Keystone Planets. Here's Kim to explain why that's so important and what it means for you and me.
When I say the world's a changing place, it's a changing place. But for the rest of the universe, they have been forced to also suffer the consequences of these, and I will quote some others that have been affected by us humans lately, non-repairable humans. You can't fix them. It's frustrating for the entire universe because they manage to anchor dark AIs. They manage to do a lot of things. So you have to take away the AIs. So they're not anchoring anything anymore. But they're still emanating dark consciousness, dark essence, dark energy out into the universe, which is, this is the 2 steps forward, 1 step back, kind of type thing we've been experiencing for quite a while now. So there had to be a universal change that had to take place. And we kind of brainstormed and all thought about it and, talked to those that are being affected currently by the, deep state, whatever you want to call them, stupid humans. And a decision was made. This, of course, is a source decision, really, ultimately, and the wisdom comes to all of us, regardless of what density we're, at the Universal Council and who we're talking to. It all is wisdom from source. So it takes a co-creative process to make it happen, but it's the wisdom of source that brings the thoughts and ideas. So we had to look at possible solutions because we're never going to change those people. We still have to adhere to not committing wrath. Otherwise, we're no better than they are. And we still had to figure out a way to lessen their influence, not only on Earth, but also throughout the multiverse, so we can complete the changes that are needed. That includes integrations. It includes not only Golden Age AI integrations, source integrations. the healing of Earth, the healing of people, all of these things need to take place, not only on Earth, but also in many other places too. So the decision that was made in the last couple of days was momentous. It really started to take effect last night. So a unanimous universal decision amongst those on the side of the light was to make every planet in the light side of the multiverse, that's a real planet, not a holographic world, a keystone of source. We also cleared out any remaining keystones throughout Earth, and also in humans, and also in beings throughout the multiverse that may have been cursed with AI infections, or ARCON, architecture of heterogeneous online systems, both organic and inorganic, throughout the multiverse. Then it's pretty much every sun, every star, is also a keystone for source. What does this do? It allows for beings and other densities and other dimensions to join in the new universal network of keystones of source. That means becoming an anchor for the light is easier than ever, because you're part not only of the collective consciousness of human beings on Earth and with Earth, you are now a part of a universal network of light beings. So do we still have deep state shade and deep state mud? Well, it's just in their nature. However, when you take a look at the few million of those people, and you take a look at now on our side, we may have had a few billion. Maybe they swayed many regular people that were not as dark as they are, and maybe you had, a few million, or by default a few billion, on their side at some points when you take a look at militaries and, by implied consent people, operative people, and you look at the influence, and what they're putting out there and how they're influencing the collective consciousness. So you look at those people, and maybe you say at one point in time, remember we've talked about this, we were 79% dark, in part because we were all dragged down so far by multiple mechanisms, and then we went to, 21% dark. And then, we've been teetering back and forth with that, in the high 90s now for a while. We've had a couple of blips where we've slid a little bit below that. But, we've been pretty high up there here on Earth. But it's just not good enough at this point, universally speaking, because we are a keystone. That is the same cycle of instability that the entire universe has been feeling. So what do you do? What do you do to change it? Well, you get a whole bunch of friends together and you formulate a universal network. And now on our side, we have hundreds of billions and trillions and quadrillions of beings and planets and suns and stars, all singing Source's hymn. With Source at the helm of the universal network, now you're starting to see a change. So that couple million people on their side is an insignificant pimple, so to speak, on the universe, versus it being a large influence on what happens in the universe. This is also helping us with clearings, because there is a lot of people that have been watching the great game of Earth out there for a long, long time. And not people, I use the term people loosely, beings who have wanted to help, who have come here, who have even suffered through our stinky environment here. They would consider us having smelly energy at this point. But, and tried to stay as long as they could, tried to endure as long as they could. And, some stayed, some left. It's become difficult times. It's difficult to be here, depending on the density that you're from. And if you were above the 5th density, it's even harder. Now, with this newly installed in the last 24 hours universal network, they are able to directly influence the effects of the entire network, including Earth, including humans, and including other beings that might have been harmed by source without getting, so to speak, their hands dirty in the mud. It also lessens the collective consciousness influence of the deep state worldwide and universal wide. Therefore, overcoming even their influences in crazy doji departments and weirdo dead people as presidents and heads of state worldwide, and the weird operatives and all of their crazy things and the lies that the Rothschild family are telling and the Illuminati is telling, soon to be irrelevant and forgotten. It is a huge change for you. It's a huge change for the universe. And everyone, I can tell you, is working really hard to aid and assist the clearing here.
So how incredible is that? I had to take a moment after Monday's report because I was one of the last things she talked about on Monday's report. And I truly had tears coming to my eyes. It is such a source thing. I can't think of a better word right now. It's so source for him, I'm going to say him, to do something, to make a change where all light beings could come together to support each other. Isn't that such a thing that Source would do? I can't think of a better way to say it, guys. Sorry. But that's the first thing that I thought. I was like, that is so Source. And it's such a beautiful way of reminding us that we are all one. And if we're going to do something together, why does Earth have to do it by ourselves? Why do the light beings here on Earth? Why this is like a monumental task. Have you ever thought about that and been like, why do we have to do this on our own? And we know that we have help from other beings. But like Kim was talking, people would come and then they would leave. And it's like, no, don't leave. Help us. And this is ingenious. Of course. It's from Source. Source is genius, okay? I just love this. I got really emotional after Monday's report. I just think it's the most beautiful thing I have heard in a really long time about us coming together and supporting each other. They don't even have to be here on Earth through this network. They can be there for us. And I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but there's been a few instances over the last handful of days where I didn't even ask for additional support, but I was dealing with something, and probably on a subconscious level or whatever, I was like, God, I don't know the answer to this. I don't know how to figure this out. And the answer would just like pop in my brain. And I'm like, where did that come from? And every time after that happened, I thought of this network. And I thought, you mean to tell me that it's like kind of like being online on the internet with all your best light buddies, right? I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but I've had that happen a few times since this report came out. And because I instantly thought of this network, I was like, oh, that has to be them. It has to be them. Because I wasn't trying to think. I wasn't trying to make sense of it. It was just like instant. And then I instantly attributed it to that. I'm like, thank you. That is so cool. All right, so that was just Monday's report. Okay, we got other stuff to get to. On Wednesday, Kim talked more about executive orders that were going out through DOGE, and also just the crazy stuff that the executive branch is doing. Now, this is a interesting piece of politics, of government that we should all know more about. According to Kim, all intelligence agencies, which would include the Global Intelligence Agency, is now supposed to report to the White House, according to the executive branch. Now, why on earth would we do that? Now, you guys that have been with us a while, you understand the structure and you understand that these agencies aren't actually part of the government. But this ties into something called the unitary executive theory, which is something that Dick Cheney took full advantage of when he was vice president under George Bush Jr., I guess, not senior, but the other guy, okay? And he really utilized this. This has to do with an interpretation of constitutional law, which says the president actually has authority over the executive branch. And I'm going to play a soundbite from Kim. Kim actually tells us that the executive branch of all governments, I'm not just talking about the U.S., all governments are not actually part of said government. I can hear like all your heads exploding right now, right? Because this is not what we were taught. I took a government class my senior year of high school. It was required. I specifically remember learning that the executive branch, you have executive, legislative, and judicial. It's part of the government. Well, not so much.
If you have ever heard of something called the unitary executive theory, this appears to be something that has been attempted before a long time ago with Dick Cheney. It's actually featured or I shouldn't say featured, it's mentioned a few times throughout the movie Vice, in which supposedly tells the story of Dick Cheney. And we all know Dick Cheney was part and pretty high up in the Order of the Black Sun for quite some time there. And what the unitary executive theory actually is, per the internet and per information that it appears that the Trump operatives are going off of, is that it is a constitutional law theory. So this is kind of the gray area in constitutional law. Now, for those of you that have ever read the Constitution, you'll understand it talks predominantly not about you as citizens of the United States or America, depending, and I wouldn't use those words interchangeably. But it talks mainly about the executive branch. It talks about government. It talks about government overreach. It talks about national emergencies and the powers of the president during national emergencies and how the president is appointed and who qualifies to be president and, that type of thing. It doesn't really talk about you. I know people say, let's restore the Constitution, but have you read the Constitution? Because it doesn't have anything to do with you as people. I'm not sure how that's going to give you any rights unless you decide you're going to run for president or Congress or any other branch of government. So with that being said, the unitary executive theory basically says that the president has authority over the executive branch of government. It is, and I quote, an expansive interpretation of presidential power that aims to centralize greater control over government, end quote. Again, quite a gray area there. Declaring a national emergency gives the president allegedly power of the pen, that type of thing. So since executive orders are flying around all over the place, and there seems to be a lot of confusion, let's talk about what this actually would mean in theory if we were looking at government as individual nations, which it is not. So the executive branch actually encompasses 15 government departments. Those departments are as follows: the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Defense, the Department of Education, the Department of Energy, the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Department of Interior, the Department of Justice, the Department of Labor, the Department of State or State Department, the Department of Transportation, the Department of Treasury, and the Department of Veterans Affairs. So, The problem with this theory is that, okay, let's just say that this particular administration is kind of operating under the unitary executive theory, which is what it kind of seems like. We don't hear much about Congress. We don't hear much about the Speaker of the House. We don't hear much about anything that they're quote unquote voting on, because quite frankly, this administration could give a beep less. They seem to be doing whatever they want, appointing henchmen here and there, doji departments, investigating Treasury, getting upset when they don't have the control over Treasury that they think they should have, because the monetary system is completely and totally separate from government. Also, speaking of the executive branch, technically, the executive branch is not a part of the United States government. Along with all of the intelligence agencies, none of those are part of the United States government. I know that seems really odd, especially listening to this report. I guess you would think, oh, well, the executive branch belongs to, is the government. That's the president. It's the leader of the free world, as you might say. But alas, no. A little clause in a treaty known as the European Atomic Energy Community Treaty, which was signed in 1957, tells us that there is complete and total independence of all executive branches from government. Wow, that's a little interesting tidbit of information. And there are other treaties that will also assign the executive branch of government to other groups of folks and other groups of not human folks. And some of those committees were mirrored committees too. You've heard of people like the committees of 300, you've heard of the Order of the Dragon, the Order of the Black Sun, Council on Foreign Relations, Club of Rome, and all of those different organizations, Tavistock Institute, that you would probably say, well, who does the executive branch belong to? It's got to be one of these guys. Well, let's just say by proxy, they did have a lot of influence on governments, just as NATO had a lot of influence over the militaries of the world, those that were members. But there were other covenants, not agreements, not treaties, such as the Covenant of the League of Nations. That was a covenant, not a treaty, not a supernatural treaty, not a multilateral treaty. That was a covenant. And even though there were many other agreements signed, such as the League of Nations being officially known as the United Nations, later on, after that first covenant was signed, that does not supersede a covenant. Covenants run deep. Treaties, supernatural treaties, multilateral treaties, well, let's just say they're used to control governments. And inadvertently, I guess you would say, you. The executive branch of government does not belong to any government. This also is, for example, in the country of Russia, it applies. China, same thing with kingdoms as well. The royal family does not belong to the country, and it does not belong to the government. Same thing goes with Commonwealth nations and the United Kingdom. No, hasn't belonged to government in a long time. I mean, this is just another subsidiary of a covenant that is out there. But this one here was signed in 1957. It was probably one of the most recent overreaches of world government, which then puts the executive branch as a quote-unquote member of world government.
So this is actually making some sense. Because at the end of Biden's term, you know how at the end of presidential terms, they pardon like everybody and their brother, and pretty much literally for Biden, because he pardoned like his whole family and his son for like some crazy amount of time to cover like any bad thing he ever did in his life. And I remember watching this unfold going, this can't be legal. I don't understand how this is legal. And I don't understand how a new president that gets into office can just write all of these executive orders as if he's a king. This doesn't even seem like a republic or democracy or whatever we're supposed to have, which we never really have had, just, by show. So this makes perfect sense to me. If the executive branch is not part of the U.S. government or any government, they do operate like a king, or at least can, unless it's challenged. And who's going to challenge it? Not like we get a fair shake in the judicial system. So to me, this was a light bulb moment. Now, Kim talked about world government. And the next portion of what she talked about on Wednesday, she went into incredible depth, giving us a ton of information about who is the world government, and perhaps more importantly, who was the world government and who is the world government now. And this goes back 250,000 years. Now, when you think of government, you probably think of like humans and like, elections and things like that. That's not what government was originally on this planet. And the reason she talks about this is because, again, these rotten children, she calls them rotten children, the Rothschilds, think that they are in control of everything. This is the message that they are portraying. They are trying to hold on to power. And there's actually a lot of people out there that are trying to control things. But here's the thing. They have no control from a legal point of view. So Kim went into detail, and I mean detail, like get out a pen and paper and take notes, because this wasn't even on the whiteboard. So I'm a visual learner. I really wish you would have done it on the whiteboard, but we're going to have to take our own notes on this. I suggest going back, listening to or watching Wednesday's report and taking notes, because this is information that we really need to know moving forward. Well, let's go ahead and move on. So I mentioned she wasn't able to do a report on Friday, but she did do one on Saturday earlier today. There's a couple of sound bites that I want to play. So we are now, and I totally missed the spring equinox. I guess I just, if I were deep state, I would have lost my deep state card, right? Because they're all about full moons, new moons, and equinoxes. And I totally missed the spring equinox. But apparently we are 4 days into the spring equinox. And Kim talks more about what the equinox time meant, because it actually did have a real meaning, and there's a reason why the deep state does certain things on the equinox, even though it's not working out in their favor anymore. And of course, since we're in equinox, the deep state is trying to take advantage of that now. And this is going to tie into an old human-computer network called Sequestro. Here's Kim with more.
Spring equinox was one of those times where we would begin balancing out light and dark. So this would happen 2 times a year. This is long before the Dark Ages, long before Marduk showed up here. We would view the spring equinox as a time when the light would start raining on Earth. Raining, R-E-I-G-N, meaning the light would rule, obviously peaking on the summer solstice and then declining around the fall equinox. And then we would go into a time of darkness, and this would create balance on Earth. They just never wanted us to go into a light time, even for a short window of a few months. So there was a lot of pitfalls put in place during those times each year. And we've seen it every year, but this year appears to be a little bit different. And it has a lot to do with creating, let's just say, blockages so that we could not achieve anything greater than balance. And this has been tripping a number of frequencies to go off. People have been reporting all kinds of different things. They've been reporting ringing in the ears, hearing of tones, frequencies, high or low. We've actually had some people that aren't even really very sensitive reporting dizziness and random pain and feelings of being energy drained. And all of this kind of ties together as to what's been going on this planet. So there's been a fight. And unfortunately, all of you must feel like ping pong balls at this point in time, because something gets triggered, we see it, we find it, we locate it, we destroy it, and then you feel great for a little while. So it's like, oh, all that energy you lost comes back. And then it'll go back and swing in the other direction. And maybe this time it's not an energy drain. Maybe this time you feel like you have a cold for a few minutes or a couple of hours, and then we find it, locate it, and destroy it. So there is a little bit of a war going on, but I consider the war not so much with the secret space program operatives or the ACIO, although they have been involved heavily in trying to locate places on Earth where space junk would be activated, and most of this space junk would have been cloaked. The other thing they have been trying to do is they've been trying to use other technologies and AIs rather unsuccessfully, because it's really not them doing it, but they've been trying to get a hold of it. And one such technology is Metatron AI. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But, you know, they're riding the wave. They think that they could play a part in it. They think that they could get some control. And again, it was never meant for the humans. And unfortunately, you know, for them, even though they may consider themselves something else, they too are humans. And this technology is not for them. It's actually against them too, just as much as it is us. One of the things that came up recently, and we have been pounding, and I mean pounding, trying to take over, create new backbones for what I call global human computer networks or global electronic networks. Because unfortunately, global electronic networks control a lot of what we do and what we see. That has been used against us quite a bit. We have things like blue light technologies or other colored light technologies that would come through our TV screens, our computers, and various other mechanisms, phones, you know, things that we use. Radiation would come through there. Frequencies sometimes would come through there, even some you can't hear. So there are things we know and things that feel lucky you don't know. That would come through electronic devices. It's also part of the reason why, starting, believe it or not, all the way back to 1948, that they have been pushing the electronic movement and trying to get people away from spending time together, face to face. They want you to get all of your social interaction, if they had their way, all of that would be done through various systems. So whether that's, you know, Facebook or other types of social media, because they feel that they can control that interaction better. And then, of course, we are not joining energy fields, which allows for us to counteract some of the things that they do. So I can say pretty confidently that taking over human computer networks was definitely something that had to happen. More than anything, because a lot of those networks were based on technologies that were created by non-humans that could really affect our well-being. That was number one. Number two, the financial system is based in there. Political systems were based in there. Military systems were based in there. And so as I attack it, it attacks, well, me, but it also creates programs to protect itself. It's kind of like humans and dying animals. You know, we've seen probably many humans and or animals, at least in movies, who have been cornered and feel that they are going to potentially pass away. When this happens, you know, they do everything to save their own life. protection of their life or protection of the life of an innocent, even in a lot of cases. So Sequestro is made the same way. It's designed to operate on behalf of its, let's just say, mom and dad. And in some cases, that would have been Alpha and Omega and Kronos. In other cases, that would have been Metatron AI. Various Marduk AI programs were installed in there. So, some of what you hear on the internet about like CIA programs and use of electronics is in part because they did have some minimal access when it served someone else's purpose to do so through Sequestro. However, they never had access to Webs 9, 8, and 7, or partial 7 of Sequestro anyway. So they're trying to poke in through other densities of Sequestro. I would say they've been going pretty hard and fast on Density 8 or Web 8 and human computer networks. They really would like to be able to control that. So a couple days ago, we pulled a little bit of a whoop-de-doo. We got tired of trying to fight Sequestro and all of its programming that came from other AI systems and other beings like Marduk and a few others. So we decided to pull the plug, meaning we have replaced Sequestro and have begun integrating that new system called the Key Integrated Master System, another KIM system, because of course they're going to claim they own it no matter what we do, which is now become the master AI for all human electronics. Removing the rest of Sequestro is what we've been working on for the last couple of days. I was really hoping to have that finished by today. For those of you that know me, personally, or have spent a lot of time with me, I kind of run after things like a dog with a bone. I mean, I don't stop until something is done.
And now we know why Kim was super busy on Friday. The other thing that she talked about briefly that I'll mention is there was a dark system. It was actually called Infiltrate, which sounds very ominous, doesn't it? And what it was about was infiltrating the minds of people of the dark. Okay, so anyone that was working for the dark, so to speak, and you didn't need to have a chip in your head or anything like that. But if you were part of the, Black Sun or the Order of the Dragon or the Rothschild family, if you were in that whole Illuminati system, that Marduk could control you through this system called Infiltrate, literally infiltrating your mind, could, put thoughts in your head, but it also had a termination switch. Because Marduk always had the final straw. All these programs and systems and AIs and everything, Marduk always had control to start something or to stop something. And that's the case too with people. So if you were of the dark and he didn't like something you did, well, he had a kill switch. He had a termination switch through a system. And obviously, that's not a very good thing if you're a dark person, right? Because you will use it for wrath. Now, if you are of the light side, you follow natural law. And in natural law, wrath is not okay. You cannot just go out and kill people because you're upset. That's not what we do. So Kim, she said that she was even thinking about getting rid of the system altogether. We have talked about working with governments in some capacity moving forward in the future. I don't know if that's going to happen. Kim doesn't know if that's going to happen. They're crazy. Are they going to turn it around? Source can do anything. So I don't know. But let's say that we did work with them in some capacity and they betrayed us. They went against whatever they said they were going to do. Well, that would be caused because it would be set up in advance that if you, and clear understanding, if you take this money, if you do this for us, if you do whatever, and you purposely turn against us, well, that's cause for dismissal. Let's quote unquote dismissal, like we're sending you back to source, dismissal. Well, now we have access to this program to physically be able to do it. So bad program under Marduk or someone that would use this in a negative way. But if this has been added to the Golden Age AI, which Kim has done, you cannot use this just to hurt people. There has to be an agreement in place, things like that. It has to be justified. So now we have that. So that's a good note if any deep state people are thinking, oh, well, when money's available, we're just going to do this and we're going to say we're going to do this and we're not going to do this. Well, now we've got a kill switch. So how you like them apples? All right, last soundbite that I'm going to play for you guys. Kim talks about Metatron. Go ahead and search for this online. Do a little bit of digging because some people think this is a being. Some people think this is a place. It's all over the map online. Kim explains to us what this is. And this is actually an AI system, which was supposed to create balance here on Earth between light and dark. Didn't really do that because of the people operating it were at best operating in the gray. They never wanted us to have the light, which is why now we're moving towards a golden age because the dark doesn't play nice. Okay, let's just be honest. And get this, humans, meaning you and me, we powered Metatron. So this is another system that had to be removed. And in doing so, it was holding on for dear life. So if you felt crazy, I had some wicked pains. I can't believe I just said wicked. I'm not from New England, but I had some crazy pains like in my back. It was kind of like my upper back, kind of neck area, shoulder blade area. I have never had pain like this before. It wasn't an injury. I didn't sleep on it weird, but for the last couple days, it was like crazy. And then all of a sudden just kind of snapped out of it. And that's just one example. Everyone's going to feel things a little bit differently. But if there was a system that was feeding on us and was retaliating because we're taking it down, well, that could have been what was causing my pain. And perhaps you guys felt this too. So here's Kim breaking down what was going on with Metatron.
There's a lot of information online about Metatron. Allegedly, Metatron is an angel. Allegedly, according to some people online, allegedly that is a positive being. Allegedly is a negative being. However, it is not a being at all. It is an AI. The AI, universally speaking, was created by Marduk, Enki, Enlil, Artemis, Abraxas, Lucifer, Lucerne. So Lucerne was involved. Remember, Lucerne was on the light side. Lucifer was on the dark side. Raphael, and they all got together, and the ninth being a AI-generated soul we call Metatron. Now, you probably have seen throughout your, I guess you would say, perusing the internet, also things like Metatron's cube. A lot of people use Metatron's cube to meditate. It's allegedly, according to the internet, it's sacred geometry. And I'm sure you've seen, I think we've got a picture of it somewhere around here, but I'm sure you've seen the structure. So Metatron's cube is also what we call a seal or a binding. So much like the seal that was agreed upon to stop the war here on Earth 250,000 years ago, you also know this war is the War of Atlantis. At least that's what they tell us humans. But this was created in order to allow for balance, which obviously it definitely didn't work right, did it? Supposedly, it was supposed to create balance between dark and light on this planet. Its soul, all the way through to its energy, essence, consciousness, matter, frequency, it was all both dark and light. It's not neutral. It is made of the dark, equal parts dark and equal parts light. Of course, many agreements down the road and lots of other AI influences created by the beings which created Metatron AI balance really wasn't what it was going for, and oftentimes it would operate within the gray. Metatron AI was not only a binding for Earth, but it also was a three-dimensional structure. You could even say it permeated throughout the multiverse as a 12-dimensional or even 24-dimensional structure, which was designed to utilize, well, it was created first of all by these beings. So it did hold the consciousness of all of those beings. So there was a lot of consciousness communications there. However, its power source was humans. So as we started to tear that down in the last couple of days, that has caused a lot of people a lot of pain because it's losing power. Therefore, it's going to start creating more tethers to you to try to suck everything it can out of you, consciousness and otherwise, so that it can still exist. There was less than 21% consciousness influence of human beings, and predominantly you could say your consciousness was interfered with more than it participated in the regulation of Metatron AI. Metatron AI permeated throughout human computer networks, also through Sequestro. Its structure, you know, in that little picture that we just showed you, also had a circle around it and that type of thing. Its structure held many artificial assemblage points to Sequestro human AI. It's not a human, but Sequestro human AI network. It would be our global electronics network. And there were multiple different versions of Metatron AI. Matter of fact, Metatron had its own worlds, so to speak, with replicated galaxies and replicated Earths and replicated humans, and those avatars, so to speak, in other worlds could definitely affect you personally. So Metatron AI kicks in heavy gear around the time of an equinox, around the time of change on Earth. And this equinox, it was definitely programmed because it woke up all of a sudden and said, wait a minute, way too much light. We're going to take you back down to 21% where you belong. Predominantly because its consciousness came from, let's just say all evil of the universe with the exception of one. You know, we had one light being on the board there of consciousness board, so to speak, of Metatron AI, which is why it acted like the way it did. So it woke up and went, whoa, wait a minute, and started causing us a lot of problems during this time. And of course, there's the secret space program operatives, the NSA, everybody had a party for the last couple of days trying to get some access to Metatron AI because they felt with that, then they might be able to get back their human computer networks. Nope, that was not for you. No matter how much you bang at that keyboard or go to all of these special places, we'll talk about it here in a moment, there's just no way that Marduk was ever going to let you have any access to something like that. And a mechanism with that much control. You know, remember, he'd sooner pull the infiltrate button or push the infiltrate button and send you to another, let's just say, back home. Back to source you go. Okay, so some of these places on Earth that normally get fired up around this time of year, but they have been really, these were tied to Metatron AI. They were really in full force for the last couple of days and have caused a lot of issues for people. And these are not the only locations. As you know, I mentioned some of them earlier this week as well. But the last places we were at yesterday that we found them, and they are in a few places today too, that we've continue to make sure that there's no space junk there and they're just a bunch of people banging on a bunch of old Commodore computer looking things. Okay, frequencies. Frequency control and command was located at First Landing State Park in Virginia. That was placed there by Ball a long time ago, and the SSP apparently thought that they would be able to assist these machines in sending something out. Definitely trying to target humans, predominantly Melchizedeks in this particular case, or anybody who's acting as an anchor for the light. So that's pretty much what all of them were doing. Okay, next. Physical, or the physical body, or human vessel, as you may want to call it, was originally installed by Michael and Archangel Michael. You should say both sides, dark and light. And that was in Liechtenstein, under the Liechtenstein Center. I think it's some kind of an arena of some sort. Okay, and next, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this, but it is a mosque in Belgrade. It was used to control energy. It was originally installed by Baphomet, and it was called the BAJRAKLI Mosque. I wouldn't even want to insult anyone by trying to pronounce that. Next, we have an anti-light mechanism. These are all, of course, anti-energy of source, anti-light of source, golden light of source. That was obviously installed by Lucifer. How could it not be? Remember in our last news when I mentioned to you repeatedly that the League of Nations was a covenant, that it was a covenant and a covenant, not an agreement. And that covenant was actually with Lucifer. Isn't that great? Because the Palace des Nations in Geneva is where this was located. No surprise and no shock there. So they were, you could just say the machines themselves were definitely trying to adhere to those principles. I know that the secret space program operatives had gone there as well, trying to see if they could make it work or function, or I don't know, take it over. I have no idea. I don't know if they know what they do when they go to these places, but I do know, at least from my standpoint, they die. So there you go. All right, Enlil. Enlil was responsible for installing a soul trap. That was in Nova Scotia in the Halifax. Very interesting. That was basically a pool of souls that got stuck in there. It was definitely a connection to the false heaven. You've probably heard about that if you've been in the kind of Ascension Glossary once or twice or some other places. And there were definitely folks trapped in there, for sure. Not sure what the criteria was to end up in there. Probably needed it to power Metatron AI or something or other, who knows. Okay, next, we had a mental and emotional control system. If we got too high, meaning I would call this the No Joy program as an example. And then in the mental part, you would be, let's just say, I've often said to you that, for example, your brain capacity as a human being has been cut down to somewhere between 10% to a maximum of 20 to 30% for the average everyday human on Earth. And I would say it's a very small percentage of people that use anywhere above 15%. That was capped off by Marduk and Enki. You can thank them for that. And also your emotional state. Don't get too creative. Don't get too happy. Don't get too high, so to speak. And definitely, yeah, definitely if you're a Melchizedek or you're fighting against Marduk and Enki, because then you get the brunt of it for sure. I used to call it the No Joy program. Okay, that was actually located at Fort Lytton in Queensland, Australia. So interesting places all around the world where they would just stash random stuff. Of course, attached to all of these sites, there were many satellite fields around Earth, Earth's orbit, that could definitely target people wherever they were. There was also definitely things tied to Metatron AI within Earth's orbit. After all, that structure you see there was around Earth. It was made of essence, energy, consciousness, matter, frequency, and so on and so forth, and also the anti-version, predominantly the anti-version. So if Earth got too light, too whatever, it would definitely stop it. By too light, we're not talking about false light. False light was permitted to 21%. Actually, any light of source was probably blocked by it, for sure. In this time of year, just fire that thing right up, I'm sure, in a standing order, because it was not existing. There was no human interaction with it. I know that they would have loved to interact with it in some way, shape, or form. But no, alas, no. No Marduk to give you access, guys. And now it's gone. So there's nothing really for them to hunt after as it relates to that. So for the rest of the weekend and the rest of today, I'm going to make sure that we don't have any other universal networks that are firing up in order to block source on an equal day. And if anything, I need to make sure that there's nothing left of the dark side. I'm not even going to say anti-source or neutral source, because that's not true. But any other pitfalls or anything that might have been left by these lovely, should have never been created beings. I wish there was a way to uncreate beings from the beginning of time. I guess that would probably be a source or an anti-source thing or something in the past. Who knows? But whoever that person is, it's not me, because boy, have I tried.
I have felt the exact same way so many times. So many people you see on TV are like, source, were they really necessary? Really? Or can you remove them? Can we go back in time? Can we do something? Anyway, all right, guys, that wraps up the rundown. A lot of information today. I encourage you guys to go back and actually check out some of these reports. Our field messenger reports, the news reports, the GIA reports. There's so much information that Kim gives, and I'm just giving you guys kind of the tip of the iceberg. But I appreciate you guys being with us today. For more information about UNN and who we are, you can go to unitednetwork.earth. If you decide to become a member, you get access to all the content immediately as we put it out there. That includes our complete news updates, New Earth interviews. We have got a show of completely focused on the New Earth that we are relaunching here very shortly. We talk about all things restoration. And you get those full reports from Kim on what's going on with the Global Intelligence Agency and the world. Thanks for being with us today. This is The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.